of being Russ is to always be better prepared than everyone else in the room.
You gotta have them ready, yeah.
Can't take anything I'm not mad at you at all because I should have been more considerate. And then the whole Easter thing, I didn't even think about that shit.
It is Easter today. Hello and welcome to Corner Comics, your mostly weekly comic book reading club. I'm your host, Burkhoff. I'm joined by my friends Walrus and Emmanuel. How you gentlemen doing this weekend, this Easter weekend?
Still looking for the Lochnar.
What?
You don't know what the Lochnar is?
No.
Heavy metal.
Oh, all right, okay.
I am staying hydrated.
That is very important.
So I've been hearing.
All right. Every week we get together, we share a few issues with each other, and then we talk about those comic issues. We've got 6 issues on the rundown today. I got too many windows open. I need to minimize some of these so I can go down the comic book reading list here. So I've got 2 issues this week. My 2 issues are the Avengers number 93, and this is from the original run. And my second issue is Usagi Yojimbo Senso, number 1 of 6. Russ, what are your 2 issues this week?
I have Join the Future number 1. Came out this year. It's from Aftershock. And it should you be living in the cities or should you be living rural? And if there's a fight, who should win? And then the second issue I have is Punisher Soviet. I think it's a 6-issue series, but this is issue number 1. And this is Garth Ennis. So automatically, because Garth Ennis should be amazing. And is there a possibility of a Russian Punisher?
Emmanuel, what 2 issues are you bringing?
Nice. All right, my 2 issues are Penultiman. It took me a while to actually stop saying Penultimate Man, but Penultiman by Ahoy Comics. This is issue number 0. It didn't start at 1. It started at 0. So if you're looking for a new comic and you want to start at ground 0, this is perfect for you. The second comic is Actionverse by Action Lab Comics. I do believe this is issue number 1. Or I'm sorry, issue number 3. Issue number 3. And this is the 2016 comic. Not that there's any newer ones, but still, issue number 3.
All right. So yeah, we usually run down the list. We'll give our opinions on the art, the story, overall impressions for each issue. If you are listening or watching this and you have any thoughts and would like to opine, we do have an email address that you can reach us at. That is cornercomicsofficial@gmail.com. So go ahead and send us an email. Chances are, since we're not getting too many emails, we'll probably read it on the air. So if you want to be the first one, go ahead and shoot that over. Do we want to talk about where people can find us on the interwebs?
Yes. You can find me on Twitter at Walrus. That's at WALLRUSS. You can also find me at blacksuperherofan.com as well as comiccreatorsofcolor.com.
Nice. And you can find me at EmmanuelTheStory.com as well as Instagram at EM_YOU_MAN. Wait, did I misspell my name? I'm sorry. I actually misspelled my own name. That is awesome. All right. EM_MAN_YOU_EL. That's how that guy's name is spelled. All right.
I love it. And yeah, let's get into the first issue. So my first issue was Avengers 93. So Marvel has released, I think, 12 graphic novels free on Comixology. You can still pick them up. I will put the links in the description for the video. And this was part of the Avengers Kree Skrull War graphic novel or collection that they put out. And I was just amazed. Like I don't know if you guys read the bootleg version that we passed around or the free version that was available on Comixology, but there's a huge difference in the quality. So the one on Comixology is a full like remaster of the original book, and the art is like very clear. The colors pop, and normally a book like this, when I was a kid, probably would have been like, "Yeah, I don't care, it's old." But going back as an adult and looking at the artwork, I was really impressed. And I think that's probably the main theme of my picks this week is just the artwork. The reason that I picked both the books that I did was because of the style of art. But yeah, this book in particular, it's like classic in the Marvel way. Kind of a cool little story about Ant-Man roaming around inside of Vision's body, and trying to find out what is wrong with him because they think that he might be dead, but they're unsure because he doesn't have the same anatomical makeup as a normal human. And you get a little Marvel history. Ant-Man talks about how Ultron was the one that created Vision, and he was the one that created Ultron. And yeah, so what are your guys' thoughts on this particular issue? And
Okay, I'll go. Um, I want to say I kind of remember reading this book. This book is a 1971 book.
yeah,
Okay, so even I would have been hella young to have read it, but I might have read it in some treasury edition somewhere. The first thing that shows up to me is Neil Adams, right?
yeah,
Neil Adams is great. Even if you think about the time that this was drawn, and then you look at the detail, especially on the faces, even Iron Man's face mask in a lot of cases, uh, uh, just friggin' great art, especially for the time. Neil Adams deserves all the accolades ever. So I was, so that was big for me. Then I looked at this whole Ant-Man into Vision's body, and I was like, this also could have been a Justice League movie where the atom went into somebody's body. It's like the same thing. The only thing different, he doesn't have three ants with him, right? But
right.
everything else, because Ant-Man, the atom is also a scientist and all that. So this could easily have been a DC book for that part. And then I realized after I read all the way through it that not only is the book only 25 cents, but it's a long ass book. They gave you a whole lot of friggin' pages.
And dense, like
Yeah,
the writing
right.
is, yeah,
And so I love the Neil Adams art. You get so much for money. It's like 25 cents, right? Uh, and then after coming back and meditating on, I realized Captain America never threw his shield even once.
nope.
And Iron Man never shot his repulsors even once. It was a whole bunch of dialogue, right? And you had all these people in there. I don't think even Thor even threw his hammer once. He just like saved somebody a couple times or whatever, right?
Right.
Most of the action came down to Ant-Man and the fake Avengers or whatever, the backup Avengers team. And even then, it wasn't a whole lot of action. It was actually a lot of dialogue and a lot of concept. Uh, but all in all, especially for a 70s book, this is sort of a feast, right? And if you ever want to, and if you have an interest to go back in time and read uh, earlier issues, I would say this should be one you should take a look at, or this series should be one you should take a look at.
Yeah.
Emmanuel, what do you think?
Truly. I really appreciated the art as well. There is a panel where it's laid to the side. It's actually horizontal instead of vertical, and it has Vision laying down before Ant-Man goes and does the whole magic school bus thing.
Yeah. That was the reason that I picked this book, because I was skimming through. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was skimming through all of the issues that were in the collection, and I saw this panel. I was like, "What issue is this? I'm going to share this." So I'm glad that image struck you too.
Yeah, it's beautiful, really, because even though it's the art of the time, where an artist to depict Vision this way, it still would be regal. It would be kind of old-fashioned, but it would still be great. It would still pop and really, really be good. So I really, really appreciated the art. The dialogue, it wasn't too 70s-ish, but you can kind of still tell that this was old school. There's a few memes that I can think of that are very set in the time. Like trying to think of an example where they would just use an old term, an old outdated term that we definitely wouldn't use today. There's plenty of memes out there, so definitely research and look. I I failed to get one for now, but yeah, the art, the story, very Magic School bussy. I really enjoyed the fact that he goes into the body, fights the antigens or the ailments, and then comes out and he's cured. But then also, it's like a part two where you see Fantastic Four or a facsimile of the Fantastic Four come in. That was good. Even though that's on the cover, you still I didn't anticipate it because I was still wrapped up in, oh, is Vision okay? All right, Vision's fine. This is going to be the end of it, but then it continues on. Like Russ said, it's very lengthy. It gives you a lot of bang for your buck. If you're buying this comic or even just checking it out for a little bit, you'll see that it is well worth the read. It's verbose, and I typically don't like wordy, super wordy comics. That's one of the qualms I have with X-Men. This really worked. This was good. I appreciate it. It wasn't, and not that X-Men does, but it wasn't wordy for wordy's sake. It really captivated me. It was for a reason. So I say thumbs up with this issue. I like it.
Awesome. Getting into some of the references, I don't know if you guys noticed, but Ant-Man has some internal, not really internal dialogue. He's talking to himself, but he's talking about EC Comics at one point, and Al Feldman, which is, or Al Feldstein, I believe. So when I brought in the EC Comics before, I don't know if, Emmanuel, you were on that episode, but Russ and I talked about him. I know that. We talked about how EC was the beginning of Tales of the Crypt and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was interesting to go back and read this issue and to see those references. Just kind of weird and off the wall. Not something that I expected at all. So, all right. Any final thoughts?
No, I think, and especially if you can get it for free on Comixology, and who doesn't have downtime
Right now? Yeah.
So definitely give it a read because you get the whole series, right? You're not just getting this one book.
Yeah, I think there's 8 or 10 issues.
So why wouldn't you want to do that? Right?
Yeah. It's normally like a $15 graphic novel, so highly recommend picking it up. All right, moving on. My second issue of the week, Usagi Yojimbo Senso. This is, if I remember correctly, he's from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles universe, or at one point they crossed over.
They definitely crossed over. I don't think they're from the same universe, but I think it's just some creators that know each other. Like, hey, come on, let's do this.
Yeah. So this is basically anthropomorphic samurai, and there's a battle that happens, and at the end of this giant battle, there's a rocket ship that crashes into the middle of the battlefield. I don't know that there's a whole lot really going on here. I was just struck by the art, and again, this is another free book that I picked up on Comixology. So again, I'll put the link in there. But I was fascinated by how the artist was able to do so much with just lines. There's not a whole lot of shading that's going on here. It's pretty much just black and white line art. And I figured, Russ, there's a little bit of murder. There's some humanized animals.
I agree there's a little bit of murder, but I didn't get enough blood. Black and white blood doesn't, but yes, there's plenty of murder. So of course I appreciate that.
And anthropomorphized animals. So I figured this book might be right up your alley, except for the fact that it's black and white. And Emmanuel, I figured you would probably like it because you would find the appeal on the art the same that I did. So that was kind of why I shared it. It's not a special book. I don't know that this whole 6 issue run is worth reading, but it does have certain things that kind of appeal to me, and I enjoyed it for that regard. So, what are your guys' thoughts?
For it to be
Oh, go ahead.
for it to be issue number 1, I still felt as if I was kind of getting in the middle of a story. Now, maybe later on in the issues, they'll unpack some questions that I have, but the whole father-son dynamic and why is this tribe fighting this tribe and what's the beef between them? There's still some unanswered questions within this issue, but it felt like a Sunday morning you get the comic, you get the newspaper, and there's some comic strips on there. It felt like that, an enhanced version of your newspaper's Sunday comic strip. I appreciate it. I appreciate it for what it was. It didn't take itself too seriously, in that it wasn't so comic-y either, but it didn't have a lot of gravitas to it. Even though there is death, there's war, 2 factions that are opposed to each other, but I don't find that it was too serious. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So because I am a bit of a fan of Usagi Yojimbo, both from some occasional comics and from showing up in Turtles, there was more gravity for me. But I think that if you don't know the character, or if you don't have enough there, it's not enough. I'm gonna agree with you that you don't know who to care about, why you should care about them. You really just get bits and pieces in this issue. Yeah. However, if it's free on Comixology, you can probably get the whole damn story. All right. I think of things like Rurouni Kenshin and other things like that when I think of Usagi. This is because remember in the beginning it says it takes place 10 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
To whatever the current timeline is, because I see him as this roaming samurai that just sort of fights evil where he finds it, and just embodies honor and all of that. Just happens to be a rabbit, and there are other animals that happen to be, there. So I liked it. It wasn't great. But I do have to give honor to the detail here. If you're doing everything in black and white and that's all you're going to give me, you can't rely on color. When I look at the, I think last couple pages where you have all these bodies sitting there, and he had to draw every single body, then every single position they're in and all of that. What I like about these stories from this artist and this work is that when you have a battle with 70 people on the page, every expression on every animal's or person's face is there and fitting, right? Anytime there's 7 people in there and there's killing, you can look and you can see the guy behind them has the right expression, and to see the guy that's surprised, and you see all of that is very well laid out. It's not a background heavy type of book. Very much the people and the characters that are playing, you might see a hill they're walking up on. But I do like the detail. I do like the attention to detail, that only when it's necessary. Like if it's close up, you get more. If it's farther away, you get just enough. Yeah. So I've kind of always had a place in my heart for this, not to the level of Turtle, certainly, but always that I can stop and read one. And now that I know that this entire series is 1 of 6 is free, I'm just gonna have to go get that one.
Yeah, like I was saying with the art, it's interesting how you get so much from just lines. Like there's very little even shading that's going on. It's very just sort of black or line art. So all right, well, any final thoughts?
I've always had in the back of my mind that I would read this comic, simply because there's some novelty to a rabbit with a sword. It looks better than a turtle with a sword. Now, the reason why I would fall in love with the turtles is because of nostalgia, because they have such a great place in my heart and in my life. But if I didn't know anything about TMNT, or the Usagi Yojimbo, and I placed them up against each other, I would much rather go for the rabbit than the turtle, just off of just optics alone.
Okay,
So thank you for giving me the opportunity to read this. This is good.
for sure. All right, Russ, your first book.
Okay, my first book is Join the Future. And it starts off with saying how amazing the future is and can be for you in this city. And then you get later on, you see what it's like to not be in the city. And then the plot continues. So before I give away anything, and the thing about Aftershock comics, they always do some post-apocalyptic stuff. They always like, you know what I mean? It's like that's the only thing they do. If you have a post-apocalyptic story, go to Aftershock, you will get you a copy. Okay? But anyway, it's called Join the Future. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so Aftershock for me has become the Twilight Zone of comic books. Like everything that they put out feels like it could be a Twilight Zone episode of some sort. Um, this particular issue, I think, does a lot to look at the dichotomy between rural life and city life, and I think that it actually has a pretty strong commentary on sort of what has divided our country, I would say, in the last 6 years. And, maybe one of the reasons that we have the current president that we do, because you have, I don't know, sort of what they call like the coastal elites. These people that live in cities that are on the coast, and then you have the rest of the country that exists on the inside. And most of our country is this rural existence, or smaller cities and towns, and not, the LAs and the Chicagos and the New Yorks. And there is a very different perspective that people take when you do sort of exist in that. And so this comic, I think, plays directly to those notions. And yeah, it's just kind of striking. It's interesting to say that it's post-apocalyptic because you do have this sort of utopia society. But what is that? Where's the silver lining? Yeah, I'm really curious to see where this goes and sort of what happens with these characters, and um, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, thanks for bringing this in because this is, I think, asks a lot of questions that normal comics don't necessarily. It requires you to think and really have different emotions that aren't always at the forefront. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
What you think of the art?
I thought the artwork was good. It's clean. It's not overly detailed. It serves the book justice, and it's got a nice realistic feel to it. But wasn't like overly enthralled with it. I just think it serves the story well.
You?
I found that the beginning of the book read more like an advertisement, but that's not a bad thing because I was sold. I was completely sold. It, I thought the whole book was going to be about the future, about them coercing me into joining their future, and I was on board for the ride. The future does not look bad because they talk about cures. Of course, in the advertisement, they won't put anything bad in there, but the future itself looks great. It has a lot of technology with the buildings and structures and what they're doing with the technology, curing things. But then also it implements nature. There's a lot of greenery in there. For me, I could tell that the future, the utopia that they're presenting is going to be bad if it's completely devoid of one thing. You have to have a balance. But it has trees in there, they have plants in their homes. It seems as if they're balanced. So initially I was looking for the catch, the rub. But then as they went on, I was sold. Okay, you got me. I want to join this future. This seems to be really good. But then when I read the part two to it, when you see the lives of those who deny that future and who are in the Western world and they're stuck there. I wouldn't say stuck. They choose to be there. I don't really see the appeal there. They're just defiant for defiance sake. They're denying progress. So I think if I were to join the side, I would be in the future.
Oh,
That
man.
they haven't, the book hasn't, this issue number one hasn't really done a great job at showing why the future is bad. I mean, it's progress. Maybe in issues two, the subsequent issues after that, they will reveal why. But it's
Uh,
great, ripe with philosophy, is ripe with choices. You can really dig deep into if it's just a person's choice, and my ability to choose is ties into my humanity. So therefore, if you force me to join the future, you're forcing me to deny a part of my humanity, which I would never do. It's great. It's a lot of questions, like Matt said, and I really appreciate that a comic that will make you think. I appreciate a comic that's pure entertainment for entertainment's sake, but also one that has substance.
okay, so I want to say something about that part of the commentary that I've been biting my tongue here.
All right.
Mm.
Um, in this future, that by the way is sold very well and it does look amazing. There's nothing in that future that would have you be great, that would have you work hard to achieve, to be a better person, or to have morals, or any of that. There's no, you could just be a sedentary individual and have no dreams and have no reason to do anything. You can just be a, I don't want to, this is my worry about America is that a lot of Americans just, they don't really want to work hard. They don't want to strive. They don't want to be moral. They don't want to be virtuous. They don't want to build and do the work to have a good life. They just want to have it. Right. And when I looked at this future, I saw, isn't that exactly what that is? Because where in this future do you see anyone striving to be more, great, or better? Right?
Yeah.
It's not there. You don't even have to paint your own room in your house. You don't even have, you know what I'm saying? You don't have to even, then you get the biggest TV in the world. Everybody gets used TVs and virtual reality. What do you have to do? You can be a, right? So if I were to teach humanity to strive and to be more and be great, that cannot happen in that setting. Now you put out here in the world where people have to kill for their own meat and to protect, it causes you to be more courageous, right? It causes you to learn more skills. It causes you to be more attentive, to be part of the community, right? To be part of something where you have your neighbors and you have discussed, because in that virtual world, you don't even have to do that, right? You could probably do all of that in VR, right? So when I look at why you would want to be, why you would not want to be there, what I find a lot of places I go is that I find people that they just want to be mediocre. That's really all they want. They want everything they want. They really don't want to work that hard. And this is not to say that's good or bad, right? But if the world will allow that, what happens to humanity? When I think about America, how we used to be comparative to other countries as far as intellect, as far as creating, as far as striving and pioneering, right? Where is that? Right? But if you are actually out there in the bush, you got to do all those things, right? You have to push, you have to be more. You can't just sit around in your mama's house. And I think so. There is something flawed both in the cities and in the rural areas in that respect, because the rural areas should also take advantage of some of this technology as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say that that's the main thing that I noticed is, yeah, the future doesn't really ask a whole lot of you. It just asks you to exist and to experience, but it doesn't ask you to strive for anything. So I think that that's the major difference between them.
Yeah, they're drastically different worlds. I think if they could meet in
Uh oh.
the middle, because
Sorry.
to your point, Russ, the future does not, like you said, you don't really have to strive for anything. Whereas in the West, those devoid of technology, you have to strive for everything. Everything is a battle, is a struggle. So the argument could be made that that world is too much because you have to push and you have to fight for every single thing.
But you have
Now,
community and family. So it's not like you are fighting alone. It's not like if you fail or fall, you don't have someone next to you.
but who's to say in the technological world you don't have family there as well? I don't think we've given enough information about how the family dynamics work, as that was just an advertisement.
Yeah, but I also say that's why I don't take the sales pitch for part one of this comic at face value because it didn't show any of that. There's a reason they didn't show that. If they thought they were doing well there, they would show it, right? This is what you do when you give an advertisement for a new way of life. You only show the places you excel, not the places you fail, right? And so if they were excelling and making people better as citizens of the world, you really think they wouldn't have said that in the ad? So I have to say, if you look at what's there, then no, they're not doing it. And maybe I can be open to later on down the line, and no, everybody in the rural area doesn't have to kill wolves. You can learn. You have family. You have community. You have community that builds together, competes together, right? It's not like in Compton where there are bullets flying everywhere, right? You can work together and deal with whatever has to be dealt with in the world or that's affecting you as a community. You know, right? You don't just, you probably all watch the same TV together if you watch one at all, right? People actually go outside and play, right? So I'm not saying that I am for one over the other, but I definitely see major flaws in both.
Okay. Gotcha.
Anyway, I'm glad that I could bring a book that made you think. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
any final thoughts before I move on to the next one?
I just picture somebody quoting Sophia from The Color Purple from the Western perspective. All my life I have to fight. I just want to put that out there. No one's. I'm speaking to the wrong crowd, I think, about The Color Purple, the movie.
If you want a life without fighting or striving or building, what is that life worth?
Well, yeah, but if you're doing it all your life, that was the, like, all my life I had to fight.
Well, you're not doing it every minute. You're not doing it while you're on the toilet. You're not doing it while you're having dinner, right? You know, it's what is
you take it to the extreme. I don't think anyone generally is doing one thing all the time.
But right now, in a lot of big cities, and you look at a lot of these younger people, and I'm generalizing, they don't have to strive. They don't strive, right? I know from where I came up, and I know from some of your background that striving made you have a different conversation about what you've earned. It gave you the practice of building the life you want instead of expecting it to come to you.
Yeah.
And, you don't expect to have an 80-inch television right off. You expect to have to do some work to get that, but you can get it, right? And you can get based on how much you're going to put your time and energy into that. And so I do agree there should be something here, but there's no living in the woods is not just fighting wolves, right? You got parties and hanging out and going behind the shed and playing with your friends and growing up and being strong together and community in ways. Because, you know, not in my neighborhood, people aren't getting together for Thanksgiving and coming together in one or two people's houses, right?
True.
I only know my neighbor if they mad at me,
Right.
or if I go into the mailbox. But anyway, I'll move on because obviously I have feelings here. So we move on to Punisher Soviet #1. This is a 6-issue book. I think all 6 issues are out. That came out this year. I love this because any Garth Ennis Punisher, I'm automatically going to like on face value. The art is right where I need it to be. The Punisher, what he thinks about and how he proceeds is right in alignment. There's certain things about Daredevil that most Daredevil books are just good. I feel like with Garth Ennis, you're just going to get a good Punisher story and book. But what do you guys think?
Manuel, I'll let you go first.
Okay. The art, the headshots, the literal headshots, not just pictures of heads, but when someone is shot in the head. The art really makes that pop. And this is a Russ book if ever there were one, because there's tons of murder. There's and artsy murder, not just murder for murder's sake. Like there's a reason. They're building something. It seems kind of investigative-y, sort of, which is I know that's not Frank Castle, but Punisher's wheelhouse, but he does give some exposition as to like his thought process behind his kills, the way he does it, in a certain style. And he walks into a room where there's a bunch of already dead people, and he mentions the artistry, how whoever did it was a professional because they came in and they took out this person first and they did that. So it was nice to kind of get into the Punisher's world. And this is what he sees on a constant basis, whether he's implementing it or he's, not necessarily a victim, but he's a part of it, a part of the murder. So I don't really read Punisher books. And I wouldn't say I'm not a fan. It's just that didn't have a lot of reason to read Punisher books, but in reading this, I was entertained. It's not as if I was opposed to it. This was okay. This is number one, so I could see where they're going. They're kind of building, leading up to something. I like the art and I like the style as well as the story, where they're leading me. A good pick. Very Russy and murdery.
Rusty?
Very
Yes.
Rusty.
Rusty.
Or Ruski. Um, yeah, I have to agree with Emmanuel on a lot of the points that he made. I'm not really a Punisher guy. My dad was always into Punisher War Journal. That was like one of his favorite books that he liked to read back in the day. I feel like this is more Frank Castle, the detective, more than it is Frank Castle, the Punisher. Um, I mean, that being said, like Punisher is sort of a weird superhero. And I'll put that in quotes because I mean he's sort of um, the archetype anti-hero vigilante. He doesn't have any powers. You know, he's just good at murdering people. Like that's his only power. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've never really been into Punisher. I don't know if I would continue with this series. Um, I I do kind of like the buddy cop aspect of it. Um, so I don't know where that's going. Um, yeah, I mean, it was a decent book. I don't know that it's something that I was too enthralled with, but yeah, it's a very Russ book for sure.
Oh, I like this is Punisher Batman Begins,
Okay,
right?
all right,
This is Punisher doing some investigating, right? Just basically observing, right? Sort of as at the cop level, staking things out. I like that he's like, "Oh, you're not going to tell me what you want to know? Let me put your mother, your wife on the phone and your kid."
yeah,
Right? So he gets to do stuff that Batman doesn't get to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's just matter of fact, he's just doing what he got to do. He already knows he's going to get what he needs. This is not an emotional Punisher, right?
no,
This is Punisher that has a job to do, has investigated, make sure he does a reason why Punisher hasn't been killed yet. Well, he's probably been killed back to life, but you know what I mean, right? Is that he actually plans and prepares and knows what he's going to do when he comes in. He's just not going in, kill everybody. That's only the right? But you see here that he does investigate and plan to make sure he's going to succeed at his job. And he has no problem with cutting off your fingers and thumbs or anything else. And then you, at the end, you see, is there another?
yeah,
And I read this whole series. I really liked it. I felt like the art was good. It was high quality art to me. A lot of details, not just in the faces, but in the bodies and the stance and the things around the world, the trees, when he's outside, all of that. So I felt that and just where the blood splatter on someone's face is and how it's falling to the ground, the guy that's sitting there dying, right?
yeah,
I There's a lot of detail there, a feast of blood, if you will.
Mhm.
Um, so I've always liked a good Punisher story, but a good one. And this puts the energy and time into the art. It gives me my profanity also, as well as the bloody and the killing. And he's not some emotional Punisher who's like, I got my family. He's just okay. Well, we got to kill these people. This is what we're gonna do. I see this happen. This is what I've been hearing. Let me go ahead. Okay, this person's dead. This person's dead. Oh, someone beat me here. And you know what I'm saying? Just calm and cool, let you know what's popping, right? But when he got a murder, he can just go shoot somebody by, he get it done. There's no, I like that. I'm like, that's the kind of Punisher I can get with, right? I don't want to see Punisher going through some emotional, I don't know if I should be doing this, and I might be doing like the Punisher series, because I just finished the Punisher series on Netflix, right? And he was going through all this emotional stuff, and I guess you have to do that in that kind of series. But they're saying none of that. Just, just murder, killing, do what we need to do, and investigating and make sure I don't get killed when I walk in the door here.
Yeah.
So, and it gave me quality art, and it gave me a little bit of Batman investigation, and again, some nice murder, just because that's how we roll. And it's a blessing.
We brought up Batman a couple times, and I think Frank Castle, this Punisher, is Bruce Wayne, where his parents not multimillionaires, and he was allowed to grow up with both parents, get married, have a kid, and then those kids died instead of his parents dying and him formulating that at a young age.
Yeah.
I can see. Yeah. So I'm sorry it wasn't all to your liking, but I thought if I was going to give Punisher to anyone, this would be the best way to present it, because this is really a quality book in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I like some of the ideas. I think for me it's more of a personal preference, just not the type of book that I would normally pick up and read. But yeah, I think I like the buddy cop aspect. It's kind of interesting, and it's a new take on Punisher for sure. And like you were saying, it's a very matter of fact Punisher, and a very matter of fact Frank Castle. You're not weighted down by all of the tragedy that creates the character. He's just, this is Punisher. He already exists, and this is him, acting in the world. So to that regard, I do like those aspects of it for sure.
Nice.
All right.
Next up.
All right. Next up is Penultiman. Penultiman Ahoy Comics, and let me go to the artists here. Alan Robinson is doing the art, and Tom Payer is the storyman. This comic actually caught my eye because it is like the whole Superman style ish. The mindset behind a regular guy, trying to do more Shazam. Regular guy trying to do what's right, but then, or regular guy, I'm sorry, and then he transforms into this Superman, and it's kind of corny, but let me know what you guys thought.
I love that all three of us already knew about this book, and it's just this weird off the wall. Like, I don't think I've ever read anything by Ahoy Comics. I think I stumbled upon this because it was free on Comixology, and I was like, yeah, this looks interesting because it's kind of a Superman style book. I love it. I love the art. I love that it is has a sort of cartoony style to it. And it is a little bit stylized, but not too much. It's very interesting that it's Superman, but he's sent back in the past rather than coming from another planet. So that's interesting. But his power set is more like you were saying, like Shazam, where he can kind of do whatever. He blows up the Robo Bowl, and then turns the sparks into cotton candy, I guess, or like ice cream or something. I don't know. The kids are like, he's like, you can stick your tongue out and catch the flakes, and the kids are like, it's cool and sweet. I think there's a lot of potential with this book, and I'm really interested to see where it goes. It is kind of short because this is a preview 0 issue. But yeah, I mean, it's got all the elements. He's got an alter ego that seems interesting. He's got some internal conflicts. He's got a cool base that floats above the earth. His power set is interesting. His backstory is totally unique. Yeah, this is a great book.
Yeah, so I saw it too, and I put it on because I have a list of books in case situations like this and I don't have another book. So it was on my list. So now, thanks to some people, I have a comic book to share with you guys later. Um, what's more interesting for me is the character himself. This is a person who doesn't think like, why is he even fighting crime? Why is he doing any of this? He doesn't have a friggin' reason. He's just lost, little boy, man. No real tragedy other than my people don't love me.
Yeah.
Oh, my people don't love me. They think I'm ugly and stupid. Then they sent me away. And, like, so I don't know if this is a character that I'm ultimately going to like because he's got to have something to make him do this, right? Everyone has some kind of, well, who doesn't have tragedy to move them forward, right? And I feel like he doesn't have enough to move me forward. That being said, I'm still interested, right? I do like the power set. I do like the art. And it was short. I felt like I needed more. Maybe that would have given me that little extra piece I need. Like I would not have paid for this book, certainly at what I don't know how many few pages there actually are. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the art. I enjoyed the concept. I enjoy the possibility. Will I buy the book for $4? I don't know. We have to wait.
I will. Issue one, if I can find it in my comic shop, yeah, I'm buying it for $4. Absolutely.
Is it 4 or is it 5 now?
It depends on the publisher. Yeah. Some issue number ones are $4.99. Some issue number ones are $3.99. But yeah, I'm totally gonna buy this book.
Okay. Wow. That's strong because I don't really see you buying anything Superman esque.
Well, like I said, it's unique. The fact that he's going backwards in time, like you said, he's just not loved by his people, which is a weird concept. I don't know. There was something, I guess, intangible about the quality. Um, it just has that vibe, I guess, that I really like. A combination of the way that the comic is scripted and the art and the way everything's laid out. Yeah, it just struck me as really fun. And I think it'd be a cool number one to have in my collection.
All right.
The
Strong.
Guardians. I think the Guardian-like characters with the asymmetrical faces. I think that was a really interesting choice to have them look the way that they look.
Yeah, it reminds me of an old Twilight Zone episode where everybody, is shouted. You can't see them. They're talking regular, but
Yeah.
Mhm.
you're horribly disfigured, and he's the only one in the whole place that actually looks normal.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff.
All right.
All right, Penultiman, and now the next on my list is Actionverse. Action Lab Comics. I picked this because it um, gives a little bit more insight into the villain, quote unquote, the person that's having the hardest time in the story, and what choices he makes versus the hero where you follow along his story almost all the time. What do you guys think about the art in the story?
You want to go first, Russ?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, am I going to go for? Oh, no, you go ahead.
Um, so the artwork, I do like the artwork. It has a very indie quality to it. This definitely feels like a book that is not part of the mainstream or the big three. Um,
Mhm.
that being said, I thought it was well put together. I had trouble following everything that was going on. I know the cover says number one, but it's Actionverse 3. I don't know if this is the first book with Fracture, but the third in the Actionverse series. Um, it's it is kind of interesting that it follows the quote unquote villain. I don't know that I necessarily believe that he's a villain. Like, is he just, or is he one of those villains that you can sympathize with his perspective because he just has a different perspective on the world? I would like to know more about the superhero that's in this, and I'm assuming that's what is his name? Vault, or I think it starts with a V.
Not Penultiman.
But the guy with the white and red and blue uniform. Because there's some dialogue in there talking about how this was like one of his personalities.
Yeah.
So yeah, what happens with the quote unquote superhero? Is he actually the villain, or is he going to be put in a position where like he snaps and moves to a personality that where that is the villain character, and maybe Fracture has to do something to save the world because he has his own self interest to look after or something. I don't know. It was kind of interesting. And definitely not something I would have picked up. I think flipping through it, the quality's not quite there. It's almost there. They did a really good job of putting the polish on top. But I would have liked to have seen maybe a little more go into the character designs and stuff. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, so I a lot of the thoughts I have the same, but it's just not quite there. And then I'm thinking after I read everything, because there's a lot here actually for one issue. So, there's something there if you paid for this and it's free, I guess. I don't know. But I don't know who the good guy is. Who should I be rooting for? Right? Am I
Yeah.
rooting for the villain that just said, I'm going to destroy the whole world if you don't bring me this one guy? Am I rooting for the schizophrenic Superman? Uh, who's my guy in this? Who's my horse in this race? I don't know who that is. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's like I don't know who I should be, because if you're going to fight Superman, you really have to be extra foul in order to win, right? I mean, only Lex Luthor can really be the only human that can take Superman down, right? Because no one, maybe Batman, but Batman would never do it. But so I didn't know who to root for. There was a lot here, and I tried to make sure I got all of it. But I do feel like maybe because this is issue 3, I'm still missing some key information that will help me sort of understand all of it. Uh, but I enjoyed it. The art was, like I said, not quite there, but still interesting. I was interesting to see the different kind of villain characters. It was like, oh, what villain is it going to be now? What villain is it going to be now? Oh, and he touches you and you go crazy. Okay, there's another villain, right? And it was interesting to see that. And on the face of it, if I didn't already know that the good guy was schizophrenic, I might not have doubted him as much as I now do because of that one statement early on.
Well,
I would like to posit,
Okay, go
is he
ahead.
though? Because this is from the villain's perspective, and the villain is saying this. So is he schizophrenic,
Okay,
or is that just a perception
if I
that he
only go
has of
by
him?
if I only go by what I see in the comic,
Hmm?
he's not a straight up good guy. He's like, oh, I just caught 3 of these muggers, whatever. Where should I put this bus if you guys were doing your job? You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
There's
I was gonna
there's,
point
there's,
out
there's,
the
some, there's something raw, a little rough about him. You expect me to just say take him as a good guy, because really I'd only be doing it because of his power set, right? Because usually people who have these particular powers are the good guy in the comic, right? But if
yeah.
you listen to his word choice and what he says and what does it, he doesn't, like, if this was Superman went to another world, he would have went around as Clark Kent to see what the world was like first, right? Right? He wouldn't just be walking around grabbing people. Hey, you guys not doing your job. That's very Batman-esque, right? Which already we know Batman is crazy. So uh, I think I think this guy is definitely is something is missing. one of the tools in his tool belt is out of alignment. But is he schizophrenic? Maybe not. Maybe he appears that way, but there's certainly something that would make you think there's more going on here than that. Right? You don't just walk into somebody's world and just beat up all their villains and take them to jail. You ain't even been there, right? He's like, I don't even know where I am. Maybe he's flying around. I don't even know how I got here. I don't know that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go beat up villains, and right? And why isn't everybody doing their job?
Yeah, the conversation with the two police officers was, I think, illuminating to the character, because you have to think that he is crazy or schizophrenic just based on how or on the spectrum. Like, he's so nonchalant about, like, well, I've got 10 of them here, or like 12 of them or whatever. And he's like, but I've caught more than that. And the cops are like, well, where are they? Well, it doesn't matter. I took care of them, like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's very sort of off the wall. Yeah, it was a good pick, though.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick. It is something I probably would not have read.
Yeah.
So good pick for that alone. And I am a little curious, right? So I don't know if I'm going to buy $5 worth of books, but if it shows up on Spotify or Comixology, who's to say I won't read it?
Yeah, for sure. All right. So those are the 6 books of the week. Do we want to get into some of the links that we have here in the roundtable at the end of the show notes?
Okay, if we have time.
Yeah, I think we got a few minutes.
Okay.
So we've been talking a lot about how all of the publishers are giving us free books. Aftershock, a page a day for 4 different books. Looks like they've got going on right now. If you were interested in any, well, I guess Animosity is the only one we've really talked about on the show, but if you're interested in any of the Aftershock stuff, 4 number 1 issues, Animosity, which is a book we talked about a couple of months ago, I think it was.
I think so.
I think almost the entire comic is available on their website, a page a day, and so you can read through that. Johnathan Hickman, he's got a comics humble bundle going on.
Are you a Hickman guy, man?
Well, with New X-Men, yeah. I haven't read all of his Avengers stuff. I know that was a lot of people really have said, like, Hickman Avengers is something you have to read. What is all included in this bundle?
Probably not what you're used to. It looks like a lot of it might be sort of creator owned.
Okay.
But if you read the writer, right? And it's a humble bundle, right? So you don't have to, you can get the dollar level of the bundle, right?
Yeah.
And just those books, right? And then if you want to read more, or because you can come back in humble bundle, right? You can get the dollar level. I think they give you quite a few books for $1. 1, 2, 3, 8, 9 books for $1. East West, I've heard good things about. And then if you like his writing, then you get more, right? But East of West, I've heard a lot of good things about. And even the maximum price you would ever pay here is $15. And you're going to get, 30, 40 books, right? Entire series, entire runs of graphic novel level stuff. And I think that if you like Johnathan Hickman's writing, or you are curious, this might be the place to do it. They're all image books in this case, though.
Okay, that makes sense.
Beautiful.
All right, and then you posted this article from CBR. I think, like, this was one of the first things you dropped in there, because we had talked about this a week or 2 ago.
Mm-hmm.
So how Dr. Doom's teenage daughter saved the Fantastic Four. Before Valeria Richards, there was Dr. Doom's teenage daughter, Valeria. And the Fantastic Four wouldn't be alive without her. So yeah,
So the deal is this, because I tried to talk about it when we were talking about it before. So basically, this is Valeria Richards from the future, right?
Okay.
Calls herself Valeria Von Doom uh, because Doom helped raise her or whatever, right? She still has the same, but she has some magic, she has some armor, and she also has the same powers as her mother, right?
Okay.
And she's got Doom sensibility. So all in all, that makes her pretty awesome, right?
Hmm.
And and so she shows up from either a parallel universe or from a possible future, and she saves the Fantastic Four. I think in the end, what ends up happening is that she is merged with the younger version of herself currently in 616.
Okay.
So this makes me think why Valeria should actually have powers. Maybe she's just too young for her mutant powers to actually kick in.
All right.
All right. But imagine who she could be. Imagine who Valeria could be with the intellect of her father, with the power of her mother, and with the sensibilities of Doctor Doom. That's just a great character all around.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and remember, it is Doom who named that girl Valeria in the first place because he saved Susan Richards. So it was always Doom, right? Even in the other
Right.
book we're reading, Valeria and Doom are ace. They're homies. They ain't gonna never have beef with each other, right? This
Yeah.
respect, intellect, respect, all of that, right? He doesn't. You know how Doom certain most people talks to people like you exist only because to serve me or in my way, right? He treats her like not coddling her, right? But he treats her like an equal,
Okay.
right? Or at least enough respect as an equal, right? And he doesn't talk down to her, and he doesn't break down concepts for her because he knows he gets it. That's a great relationship. Can you imagine if Doom had a child that was at his level? If Doom had a daughter, right? Isn't that something you want to see? I want to see the daughter of Dr. Doom. Anyway, because we sort of talked on it before, I thought, hey, here's a link that talks more about it.
Yeah.
And you can,
I'm uh I'm kind of disappointed that X-Men Fantastic Four #4, which is going to be the final issue in that miniseries.
which may not come out for a year.
Well, so based on what I heard at the comic shop, it's going to be July, I think, is when, or June is when they're going to start printing books again. So they're actually going to hit the store shelves in July. But Marvel stopped the digital run of their books in favor of making sure that they sync with the print runs. So there's going to be no new comics from Marvel. I don't know if DC is doing that or not. They might still be doing their digital books, but yeah, as far as I'm aware, no new books from the major publishers until stuff starts getting printed again.
Well, what's good about DC Universe is they were already months behind. Anyway,
Yeah,
all right. For me, I'm still gonna just be able to catch up, and then by then they'll be shipping again.
yeah.
So no worries there. I also wanted to say that while we've been sitting here, I've been adding free books to my cart in Comixology, and I got the max. There's like you can't add more than 150 books.
You can. So all right, so you can't add more than 150 books at a time. You can
Yeah.
get all 1,000 issues or whatever that are free right now,
Mhm.
which is insane. And I added them all to my Comixology account because I thought, why not?
Yeah.
The crazy thing though is it screws up all of your smart lists. So like I have all the print books that I bought that I added with the codes, and now
Mhm.
I've got this huge chunk of just random miscellaneous books in between the books that I've been reading. So I've got to actually pull out my physical issues and see like where was I, because there's no way to keep track now.
You
Not
know,
that problem to have.
you would
Yeah.
think there would be some kind of software that would enable you, or some kind of online, because there's places I can keep track of the movies I watched. There should be somewhere to be able to keep track of the books I read.
Well, Comixology does it for you, but now because I've injected this 1,000 books in between what I was, my normal reading,
Mhm.
it screwed everything up on my account. So I would watch out for that. highly suggest picking and choosing, because there are some books in there that I went back through and I was like, I don't know why I added this to my account.
Yeah, I'm just adding them because they're free. I don't care.
Right.
And then when I'm looking for, it's like you look in the refrigerator, like, what am I going to eat today, right? I'm just going to look through my collection. Like, oh, that looks interesting. The
Yeah.
Misadventures of Adam West. Okay, let me go see what that's about, right?
Right.
So yeah, I'm not using it as my primary reading vehicle because it's like Netflix. You only can see what's on there, right? But I don't limit myself to what is on there. So I can't allow it to be in charge of what I read and keeping track. That's why I'm looking for something outside of that. Like there's a website I use to keep track of movies I watch and how I rate them.
Yeah.
And so it would be nice if there was something for comic books like that, but then maybe they're worried that I would be not buying them. So who knows?
Yeah.
It's a book comic. How about that?
All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap up and get out of here, guys?
So I guess we're only doing older issues, huh? Or issues that we can find online for free.
I mean, for the time being, we've got plenty to go through. I think if any of us find anything interesting that we want to share with each other, for sure. I did. My comic shop did finally catch up with print stuff, so his order went missing in somewhere in Missouri for 2 weeks, and the books finally showed up, which I felt bad for him because he had books that had been like folded in half and the boxes that were damaged and stuff. But anyway, so I have Road to Empire #1 that I need to read, which is the new Kree Skrull War that's going to be happening in the Marvel Universe. And so, yeah, some other stuff that's more.
I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to dig deeper in my usual underground areas.
So yeah.
Before we go, when I was talking about old-fashioned slang in the 70s, I've actually found some. I just wanted to kind of illuminate what I was telling you about before.
Okay.
Marvel's so old to where the term solid dick was slang for straight talk. It was slang for like just really solid talk.
Yeah.
So there is
that was before my time. They weren't doing that a lot of time.
There's a panel where Iron Man is in the background and Captain America's in the foreground, and you have this word bubble where Iron Man is saying, "Still brooding, eh? Maybe what you need is some solid dick from Iron Man." and Captain America states, "Maybe I do, Shellhead. Maybe I do."
Oh my god! That was in the issue that I shared.
I remember.
No.
Oh, I was like, I totally missed that.
Seeing that panel somewhere.
Wow.
I don't remember where I saw it, but now that you said it, you could probably just write it down and say Iron Man, solid dick.
Yeah. There's a few others, but that was one of the most heinous. So I figured I'd go ahead and present that to you guys before we left. You're welcome.
All right. I think we should end on that note. That's a solid that's a solid dick to leave on. Oh, and shout out to Splash Page Comics for joining us this week. I appreciate it. Hopefully you'll join us again next week.
Excellent. Yeah.